I haven't done this while, so welcome back to an epic book review. Epic book review. I was so blessed recently. I connected with someone I've known for a very long time. His name is Jeff Utecht. He did not ask me to do this, but he did share his latest book. It is titled Human Still Required, Leading Schools the Work Machines Can't Do. And he gave me the book and I really appreciate it, but I wanted to read it on a plane, so I just downloaded it on Kindle. I really highly recommend this book. And I've known Jeff probably for over a decade. We connected a long time ago in Asia, of all places. And I've known him ever since, and just really a brilliant thought leader. And he's in the Washington State area. But this book is really, really powerful. And one of the things that I really appreciate about what Jeff has done here is he wrote a book that has connections to AI that could be relevant 15, 20 years from now. Because honestly, AI is not going away. And that's never a good argument to embrace something. I think it should make your life better. But because it's not going away, there is a relevance to this because he doesn't talk about tools with AI, but really kind of the systems of thinking and how much I appreciate it. So I just want to share a few quotes that really resonate with me, some of my takes on them as well. And even thinking about this podcast, and I'll get into a second, just taking the time to share some of Jeff's quotes and then sharing my incentives my takeaways is a really great way to process your learning. So anyone who's listening to this, just think about what is the opportunity when we actually use this technology to create. And Jeff talks about this a lot, and I'll share one of his passages, his quotes that are regarding this and why it matters so much to me. But I do want to share a quote that really kind of summarizes what the book is about and what Jeff is trying to accomplish with this. He shares really early on, what AI does better than any previous disruption is expose systems exactly as they are. Strong leadership becomes more visible, weak leadership becomes harder to hide, productive habits get amplified, hollow one's class faster. AI doesn't ask schools to change their values, but it does demand that leaders finally be honest about them. The question I always come back to and I really think about is, what is the purpose of school? Is it to basically get kids prepared to work for other people? Is it to basically have a checklist? Is it a daycare? Some people would say that's kind of what school is for. I would never say that, but that is the intent of it. For me, the purpose of school is how do we help students, first of all, find a path to success that is meaningful to them. That's something that really matters. But also, it is actually getting the students we serve to understand they can make a real impact on the world today and in the future. Not just the future, but today. So Jeff really gets people to think about what are the values, what is the purpose of school, and what are you trying to achieve, and how can artificial intelligence help this? How can any emerging technology support this? So, like I said, I really highly recommend this book, but I do want to share some quotes from it. This one is a little bit longer one, but I think it's really, really powerful. Jeff shares this. There's a temptation right now to double down on difficulty or to retreat to paper and pencil, offline tasks, and analog work to make tasks harder so AI can't complete them easily. This is a mistake. Harder is not better, clearer is better. Going offline may limit access to AI, but it doesn't automatically increase thinking. Harder tasks and analog tools only matter if they are intentionally designed to develop skills. Otherwise, they simply slow the work down without deepening it. Paper and pencil work is valuable when the goal is the skill of handwriting, annotation, or sustained attention. But if the goal is judgment, analysis, transfer, or reflection, the medium is secondary to the thinking required. AI doesn't expose a digital problem, it exposes a design problem. This quote really resonated with me because right now there's almost these two camps that are existing in education. There is the we need to use AI because it's not going away camp, which again, I said is a bad argument. Never use something just because it's not going away. And we should be using no technology. And if we go back to what is the purpose of school, what are you trying to achieve in the goals of school? And if we're trying to help students find a path to success that's meaningful to them, I think, and Jeff comes back to this, there has to be a blend of these things that you have to really develop basic skills. And so I'm not against paper and pencil, but I've said this before. I would never force kids to use technology like a computer in a classroom, just like I would never force them to use paper and pencil. Whatever works for the kid, this is that idea of helping kids find success that matters to them, is where you should actually begin. How do we help students? So you're having these conversations. If you are watching YouTube videos and you're kind of tuning out and not really connecting, the technology is not really helpful to it. It can actually be harmful. But taking time to create something like this, to have conversations, to share some thinking about some ideas, is a process of reflection. We get caught up in the technology, but we don't see the creation that is happening because of it. There is a post I wrote years ago, and why do I remember it off the top of my head? Because I wrote it and I blogged and I had to work my way through it, and now it's stuck in my head. I probably wrote it over a decade ago. And it was basically saying, what is better, handwriting notes or taking a picture of notes? And overwhelmingly, the support is, if you want to retain information, handwriting is the better process. But is the goal retention? Is the goal retention, or is it a deep understanding? So my argument was, basically, I want kids to deeply understand, as Jeff is arguing, to deeply understand the information, to be able to leverage it in a way that matters. So how do I utilize my time? So yes, of course, I'm not saying don't do handwriting or write down any paper notes. Some of you might be listening to this right now and writing paper notes. Sometimes when I'm talking to people on my podcast, I actually write notes there because it's helpful to me in the process. But if I took a picture of what is in front of me, and then all that time I saved from not writing the notes, I took that picture, read over that, and then wrote a blog post, created a podcast, did a video on it to actually teach that to others. And this is something, it's funny because Adam Grant's like, we should remove laptops, but he constantly tweets and posts things online, which is hilarious, is that every time that laptop can actually help you reflect in a way that maybe is more helpful to you. I was never good at paper and pencil, and some kids today will not be good at paper and pencil. But with technology, I'm very organized and can find my stuff very easily. Just these quotes, I pulled them off. I downloaded them from Kindle, or I highlight them on my Kindle app, go to a site, all my notes are there, and then I copy them, and now I'm processing information. Don't get caught up in the technology. It is really, what are you trying to achieve? Do you want kids to reflect? I'm not saying you can't reflect using paper and pencil. But now that you're listening to this, I really got to think about my ideas, because I know anyone in the world can see them. So again, this is not about technology, no technology. And even though, honestly, paper and pencil is technology, we just have never known a world without it. So we just assume it's just a thing. Just like we don't really think cars are technology either, unless they add something that we never had before. What are you trying to achieve? Are you just trying to, get kids to regurgitate and checklist to school? What is the purpose? And I think Jeff does a great idea to kind of connect this. The next quote I want to share with you. This is, I just love this idea. I thought it was really powerful and it really connected with me. And Jeff says this: leaders don't need to oversell this. They need to name it clearly. Try language like, we're going to use AI to reduce administrative load, not raise expectations. If the tool saves time, we're reinvesting the time into instruction and support. AI can draft and summarize, people decide. If something matters, a human reads it before it goes out. We're not chasing tools, we're protecting human attention. That's the tone schools need: calm, direct, and grounded. The idea that Jeff shared here, and I should have kind of prefaced this, and I apologize, but I'll make more sense of it now, is there's a lot of things that AI can replace or quicken that don't necessarily need deep thinking. But what I love that he said is that if you can speed up that time, if you can take something off your plate that AI can do, how are you intentionally using that extra time to do something that is beneficial to your school? So I think one of the examples he shared was, hey, I'm gonna use AI for this thing, and because of that, I'm gonna actually have more time to be in the classrooms. As school leaders and administrators, if you can not just say, here's what I'm using with artificial intelligence, and make that learning public and model the learning to your staff, Don't just say I'm using the AI. I'm using the AI, and because of the time I'm saving, here's something I can do that actually will build a human connection. So I just want you to think about that. If you're using this to replace something, what can you actually do to make it better? That's something I really, really appreciated in Jeff's quotes. There are two real short quotes that I want to share from Jeff that I really appreciated, and they're in different parts of the book, but I think they really, really matter. The first one is, you cannot welcome the future while pretending the past didn't matter. As I share in my own book, Forward Together, the thing that I needed to really get better at over time was I was constantly talking about the aspirational ideas that we have, but I wasn't focusing on the foundational. I truly believe that if you can improve one thing in schools that would change everything, it's reading and writing. If you knock down reading and writing, everything else seems to open up. And so that is a practice that mattered, long before I was a kid, and will matter years from now. And I know we can do text, audio, all that other stuff, but I just really think it opens up doors that nothing else does. And so can we really knock that down? Where we often talk about the aspirational stuff, but we don't say, here are the foundational elements that we build on. The other part of this too, why I love this quote, one thing that I often share with people is, if you're doing things in your classroom that were done hundreds of years ago and they work for kids today, you should still do those things. But if you're doing new stuff, just because it's new, but it doesn't work for kids, you shouldn't be doing that. It should not matter the generation, the idea. It should matter, does it work for the people we serve? And going back to what Jeff shared earlier, does it align with what we're trying to create, the experience that we're trying to create in schools, and the ultimate outcome? How are we getting kids to help find that pathway to success that is meaningful to them? And that goes to the next quote that Jeff shared, is that you cannot standardize personalization. There was a conversation I had years ago with a staff, and they were talking about common assessments. And I pushed back on it because one of the things that they were really adamant about, and I get it, is that no matter what class, kids should have the same experience. But that's not reality. And here's why I'd say this, and you can push back on this, I'm fine with it. This is just a perspective that I have, is you can never standardize an experience, because then you take the human out of it. I'm going to teach different than someone else. And I'm not saying mine's better. I'm not saying theirs is worse or vice versa. But there's a humanness that matters. If we're trying to make everyone the same, then why just use AI, right? Because then you can make the exact same experience for everybody. So the common assessments thing is kind of like, hey, every kid, I remember someone saying no matter place, time or place, they should have the same experience. What I push back on is, some of our kids are not bad at science. They're bad at writing about their understanding of science. But if everyone has the common assessment where it's a writing process, you are taking away the human factor there, where you can't really just understand the kid in front of you. That's what the teacher needs to do. That's what we need to do as administrators, understand the people that we serve and move backwards from there. So if we're just but we're saying this is like, hey, we want personalized learning, but standardizing assessments, there is a disconnect there too. One last quote I want to share from Jeff. And I just wanted to share this because I hope people would, and I'm hoping that Jeff will be on my podcast, because I'd love to talk to him more about this book. And I know that we're planning that at a later date. He shares this, and I just love it. Tradition matters. It carries wisdom, memory, and identity. But tradition without reflection hardens into habit. And habits don't justify themselves. Many school practices continue not because they work, but because they're familiar. There is a quote I often share that I really believe is that risk is moving from a comfortable average in pursuit of an unknown better. The reason I share this, because we will see things that we are doing that are comfortable for us, but they don't work for the people you serve. But that comfort level pushes away from this. And I joke with groups is, when you think of that definition of risk, you realize you're risk averse, not only professionally, but personally. And I'll give you an example. If you're listening to this, have you ever stayed in a relationship way too long? Because I've done it before. And asking, why did you do it? And you might give like, I don't want to move my stuff. You had mutual friends, and then you moved on from the relationship. And then you're like, I should have done this years ago. But that comfort and familiarity, we stick with something, not necessarily because it's good, but because it's easy. And really, it's not discarding tradition. The thing that I share is that tradition is not a bad thing. Doing something because you've always done it, that doesn't work is the bad thing. And you have to kind of identify those things. So I think what Jeff does really beautifully in this, and it's something I'm very cognizant of, especially with my work in Forward Together, is you actually have to really build on what's good from the past, but you don't have to just do everything that's in the past, because some stuff we just do it on repeat without thinking about it. So what is that good thing that you are building on, and how does it lead to a better future? Look at the traditions you have in your school. And there is an example. I've shared this before, and I apologize if you've heard this story, but I remember actually going into a school where I was a principal that had been there for years. And one of the things I noticed was these principal pictures. And this is something that they just have done for years and years and years. Every principal had their portrait. That's the first thing you saw when you walked into school. And I refused to put my picture up. And when I pushed my staff about it, they didn't want to take those pictures down because that was tradition. And I really wanted to think about, what's the point of school, and who are we serving, and what are we honoring? What would it mean if when kids walked in, they saw themselves? Now they have ownership over the school. And I'm not talking kids from yesterday. I'm talking kids in the building right now. And just actually having the conversation matters. So sometimes we will just walk by something, or we will see something, and we don't even ask the question. Say like, hey, why are we doing that still? Like, why are we doing that? Because I could have easily just walked in and said, okay, they've always done principal pictures. I'm going to do a principal picture. And even though I have not been in that school for over a decade, I know those kid pictures are still up. Not the kids that were there, but the kids are there currently. And that's one of my ways of leaving my fingerprints on an organization, which I think is really powerful, because nobody knows I was principal there, but I know that they do something differently because I asked the question. And that's something that Jeff challenges, is you have to ask the question, why are we still doing this thing? And maybe there's a really good reason, and then continue doing it. But I think a lot of times we just walk by, don't even pay attention, and we just do the stuff we do. And that's what Jeff says about, we do this because, these things aren't necessarily good, but they're familiar. So challenging that. So I really, if you are in school leadership, if you're a teacher, and by the way, if you're a teacher, you can still be in school leadership because you have influence over others. School administrators, and I know I'm kind of going off on a diatribe here, just because you're an administrator doesn't mean you're a leader. And because you're a teacher doesn't mean you're a leader either. It's your influence on others to make a positive impact moving forward. This book, I really highly suggest it. Humans Still Required. Awesome book. I hope you pick it up. I bought it. I have a version here, a paper version, but I did read on Kindle. Either way, you're going to benefit. And Jeff actually talks about how he used AI to help support him in the book, which I think is really powerful as well. Anyways, I got to do these more often. I miss doing the epic book reviews. I need to read a little bit more than I have been in the past. I was really good about this a couple years ago, but yeah, it was great to read this book, and I know you're going to love it. Highly suggest it. Humans Still Required. Another epic book review. All right, I'll leave you alone. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for Jeff. Great book. Have a wonderful day. Take care.